definitely at corruption, and we are not doing well in terms of recovery. We're only recovering around 30 billion a year, which is not even 1% of what we are losing. When you look at Transparency International, they scored us at 27%, and I think in the 144th position out of 180 countries. So we're not performing well when it comes to the actual fight. And also when you look at Uganda, even for the last 1 year, I've seen so many scandals coming up. We heard about the Mabati scandal coming up, and there's so many people involved. Even the goats, the other scandal that's not talked about, but the goats which were bought at exorbitant prices and most of them died. That is also another issue. You saw issues in NSSF, the mismanagement, blatant mismanagement of savers' money. We have seen issues just in this last 1 year. We have seen issues of ghost workers coming back again, ghost workers, ghost pensioners, ghost health facilities, and Ugandans are losing billions of shillings. In one district, we talked about 26 ghost health facilities and 50 billion lost in just in Tongamo district. Then we have other issues of misuse of PDM, Parish Development Model money, and we have seen a few people here and there getting arrested. So there are quite a number of issues that, irrespective of the fact that yes, we have done something, but we still have a long way to go. Yes.
And now you talked of a PDM, and of course it's a good initiative that we have currently in Uganda when it comes to trying to improve the livelihoods of people. And of course there's a lot that has transpired when it comes to PDM, and the funds that have been dispersed in different circles go out. People do not receive the funds. Why? Because they are ghost recipients of the funds. People register, and of course to get to know that people don't exist. And of course complaints have been coming in by the people, the locals, who are the beneficiaries, that of course they have not been getting anything. So each being one of the biggest initiatives actually in Uganda, what do you think can be, of course they're planning to have a system to find a way of streamlining how this money is dispersed and of course given out to the beneficiaries. So I want to know, when it comes to PDM, what measures can be put in place so that this money actually reaches the people, the beneficiaries, the fact that it goes straight to the people, like the Prime Minister said, that the money is actually for the poor people. So I want to know what measures can we put in place that this money actually reaches to our grandmother, our mother in the village who has hope of achieving something, who has hope of putting food on their table at the end of the day.
I think one, for the PDM, is that we should have learned from the past. I think we have learned from the past. I've had programs like that. We had the Youth Livelihood Program, the Uganda Women Entrepreneurship Program, had the Ntandikwa, we had the Wanabagagawale Operation Wealth Creation. And of course the common thread throughout all those programs was that they were highly infiltrated and affected by corruption. And of course the problem starts with the whole inception, that before this program is conceptualized, has there been enough evidence collected from the people to know what the problem is? That is one. And then of course that also informs the intention of the program. Previously these programs have been highly politicized. They have been seen as a thank you to the voters, and sometimes even the timing is not the best. So once you don't remove the politics from the program, it becomes a problem. And I think even now we don't need to repeat the same mistake of that. Issue number two, of course, they talked about putting some safeguards in the guidelines. I know there are several pillars in the PDM. Of course, one of the pillars being the information management system, where they collect information and they assess it. But also these systems are managed by people. I hope that the information that is being input is actually the right information, because the issue of ghosts is a very big problem that is coming up. But also they were suggesting that for the circles, they could wire the money directly to the circle accounts. but which is not working, because actually most of the money is instead going to the districts and sitting idle on the district accounts for most of the districts. These circles haven't received the money. So I think, one, the intention of the program should be clear from the start, that this is money for development and you pay it back. Let the divisions per the different pillars be clear, because you have 7 pillars. You have social services, you have a pillar on financial inclusion, on the systems, on the attitude. Let it be clear, because what we are seeing is that a lot of money is going on the soft things of sensitization and then the other pillars which are equally important are not being given that kind of the kind of resources that they need. Then you also need clear coordination between the different agencies, because there's been miscommunication. Go to some districts, the circles are there, but they have the money on account. They say that they haven't received the directive. You go in others, they have disbursed the money. There is like the coordination has also been missing in that context. But of course, all that said, we still remain in a context, because PDM is not implemented on Mars. It is implemented in a context which is Uganda. And this Uganda is extremely corrupt. And I don't expect PDM to be an exception. So that there are things within the context that you need to change. If you're living in a culture that has been highly compromised and people are corrupt, definitely the program will also be affected by corruption. So there are things we need to address. The issue of leadership in the fight against corruption, we need to have committed leaders in the fight against corruption. If you are having members of parliament and ministers and prime ministers stealing Mawati, and no action, clear action is taken, you only get a few, they are taken to court, others are left scot-free. It means that there is a breed of people in this country who are untouchable. Now, once that perception remains in the country, it's the one that has been breeding this corruption. So having that context, there is no way you expect PDM to be a miracle. And definitely the issues you are seeing, they are going to remain. And I don't expect really the PDM to be an exception, because the context is already corrupt. The Uganda is already corrupt. You need to address the bigger corruption. You cannot address corruption only in the PDM without addressing the bigger corruption.
And now, of course, this reminds me the fact that, of course, government actually said for the purposes of civil servants, they have to declare their wealth to GG. And I must say, of course, some members have actually taken initiatives, let's say members of parliament, including the speaker, to declare their wealth to IGG, and of course to know where they get their income or extra income. But of course, I must say, there has been that is not enough to fight this war that is in Uganda when it comes to corruption. And of course, you may have someone declare their property, but you are not certain as an individual if that is the only property they have. I've seen people set up buildings actually, and of course, and you hear this is someone's property, some big person, prominent person, and of course, it has really affected people, because you imagine if an individual alone, let's say a certain ministry, if there is money dispersed in the ministry, if an individual alone can manage to have billions of shillings disappear in no minute, that poses quite a challenge for us as Ugandans. And of course, as we know, corruption actually, the economy actually is dependent on the fact that, when there is no such thing, we can thrive as an economy. So we are in the post-COVID recovery. And of course, we are trying to see that we progress. And of course, things like Babati, like you said, have been coming up, and a lot of other issues. Of course, today I read in the papers, the IGG was actually in national medical stores to talk about the fraud that is happening in there. And of course, it affects health. It affects the economy, and it's a very big issue. So I want to know, what has government done to strengthen the accountability and transparency in both the public and private sector to combat corruption?
I think one, you, of course, initially talked about the whole system of asset declaration, which on paper is a very good system, but when it comes to practice in Uganda, it hasn't worked. It hasn't worked, and the results are really dismal compared to the effort and resources invested in there.